I'm going to read The Prince and the Pauper, which was written by Mark Twain. And this story about Tom met the prince. Here you go. Uh, Tom's meeting with the prince. Tom got up hungry and sauntered hungry away, but really thought busy with the shadowy splendors of his nice dreams. He wandered here and there in the city, hardly noticing where he was going or what was happening around him. People jostled him, and some gave him rough speech, but it was all Ralston, a musing boy. By and by, found himself at Temple Bar, the farthest from home he had ever traveled in that direction. He stopped and considered a moment, then fell into his imaginings again, and passed on outside the walls of London. The Strand had ceased to be a country road then, and regarded itself as a street, but by a strained construction for road there was a tolerably compact row of houses on one side of it. There were only some scattered great buildings on the other, these being palaces of rich nobles, with ample and beautiful grounds stretching to the river grounds that are now closely packed with screams acres of brick and stone. Tom discovered the charming villages presently, and lost himself at a beautiful coast built theirs by a believed king of earlier days, then either the dawn or quiet. Lovely lord passed the great cardinal stately palace toward a far more mighty and majestic palace beyond Westminster. Tom stared in great wonder at the vast pile of the masonry. The wide-spreading wings, the crowning bastions and turrets, the huge stone gateways with its gilded bars and its magnificent arrays of colossal granite lions and other the signs of the symbol of English loyalty, was the desire of his soul to be satisfied at last here indeed. With a king's palace, might he not hope to see a prince, now prince of the flesh and blood, if heavens were willing? At each side of the gate stood a living statue, that is to say, unelected and stately and motionless this man at arms, and credits from the head to heels in shining steel armor at a respectable distance were many country and poor and people from the city, waiting for any chance glimpse of loyalty that might offer. And splendid carriages too with splendid people in them and splendid servants outsiders were arriving and departing by several other noble getaways that pierced the royal enclosure. Poor little Tom, in his rags, approached and was moving slowly and timidly past the sentinels with a beating heart and a rising hope. And all at once he caught sight through the golden bars of a spectacle that almost made him shout for joy. Within was a comely boy, tanned and browned, with his sturdy outdoor sports and exercise, whose clothing was all of lovely silks and satins, shining with the jewels at his hip, a little jeweled sword and dagger, dainty buskins over his feet and red heels, and on his head a jaunty crimson cap with the drooping plumes and fastened with a great sparkling gem, and several gorgeous gentlemen stood near his servants without a doubt. Oh, he was a prince, a raving prince, a real prince without a shadow of question. The prayer of the poor boy's heart was answered at last. Tom's breath came quick and short with excitement, and his eyes grew big with wonder and delight. Everything gave way in his mind instantly to one desire, that was to get close to the prince, and have a good devouring look at him before he knew what he was about. He had his face against the gate bars. The next instant one of the soldiers snatched him, lured away, and sent him spinning among the gaping crowd of country girls and London idlers. The soldier said, "Mind the manners, thou the young beggar." And the crowd jeered and laughed, but the young prince sprang to the gate with a face flushed and his eyes flashing with this indignation, and cried out, "How dare thou to use a fool lad like that? How dare thou use a king my father minister subject so?" And opened the gate and let him in. You should have seen that pickle crowd snatch off their hats then. You should have heard them cheer and shout, "Long live the Prince of Wales!" The soldiers presented arms with theirs the halberd and opened the gate and present again the little Prince of Poverty passed in his fluttering legs to join hands with the Prince of Limitless Plenty. Edward Tudor said, "Thou lookest tired and hungry, and those being treated ill, come with me." Half a dozen attendants sprang forward to I don't know what interferes, no doubt, but they all waved aside with a right royal gesture, and they stopped still where they were, like so many statues, and Edward took Tom to a rich apartment in the palace, which he called his cabinet by the command of the past was brought, such as Tom had never encountered before except in books. The prince, with a princely delicacy and breeding, sent away the servants so that his humble guests might not be embarrassed by their critical presence. Then he sat nearby and asked the question while Tom ate. "What is the name? What is your name, lad?" "Oh, Tom Canty." "Please, sir." "These are ones. Where done live?" "In the city, please, sir. Upper Court, and out of the pudding lane." "Upper Court? Truly this another old one. Hasn't parents?" "Parents have, yeah, sir, and then granddames likewise, and that is not indifferent, it's precious to me. Good forgive me if it be offense to say it also twin sisters now and Beth." "Then is this grandam not of kind use, I take it?" "Neither to anyone others is she, and so please your worship. She has a wicked heart, and then working evil all her days." "Not she maturity. Every time that she strayed and her hand and being asleep overcomes with drink, but when she has her judgment is clear again, she making up to me with goodly beatings." A fierce look came into the little prince's eyes, and he cried out, "What, beating?" "Oh, indeed, yes, please, sir." "And beating? That's so praise and little, hark it. Before the night come, she shall high and heard to the towers, the king my father." "In truth you forget, sir, and in how low a degree the tower is for the great alone." "True indeed, I had not thought of that. I will consider her punishment in this bad kind deed, and not more than screaming Canty, sir. Thoughts to be alike, mayhap. My hath, not all those tempers. The heathens with us the heavy hand, yet spares me. He spares me always with his tongue, those to say, how doth the modesty use thee? She's good, sir, and gives me neither sorrows nor pain of any sort, and bad are likely to hurt in this. All days. 15. As priest, sir. The Lady Elizabeth, my sister, is 14, and the Lady Jane Grey and my cousin is of mine are aged and comely and gracious withal, but my sister Lady Mary, with her grew Mr. Man, and look you, and do sisters, and for their servants smile, rest the sins, destroy their souls. They, or those they think, sir, that they have servants. The little prince contemplated the little paupers gravely a moment, and said, "And freely, why not? Who helps them undressed at night? Who turns them when they rise? None, sir. So wouldn't have them take off their garment and sleep, and without like a beast. Their garment? Have they but one? Ah, it's good, your worship, and then what will they do with more? Truly, they have not body siege. So quaint and marvelous though, so, the pardon, I had not meant to laugh, but a good non the Betty shows to have limbed and linked, and then assumes to my for shows to look fit. No, thank not, it's nothing, and those speakest well and has an easy grace in it, or learned. I know not if I am not certain the good priest that is called Spar and is taught me of his kindness from his books, knows all the Latin, but can't research the adult. Learn it, lad. This hard on you at first. The Greek is harder, but neither these nor any tongue answer. I think that our hardest Lady Elizabeth and my cousin, those students here, those dancers at it. But tell me of the awful her. And there's present life there. Interest, yes, so please, source, save when he's hungry, and then there'll be punch and jewelry shows, and amongst all such creatures bravely dressed, and maybe place where they play, do shout and fight till all are slain. And this are fine to see, and then causes about fallings, alright, this main hard to get the fallings, please, your worship. Tell me more. So we large stuff for court to strive against each other with the culture, like the fashion of the apprentice sometimes. The princess eyes to fresh the study. My that would not I mislike it anymore. We strive in races, sir, to see who of us then shall be prettiest. That is I like so speak on. In summer thirst, we wait and swim, and the canals and in the rivers, and each is the dark is nervous and spreading into the waters, dive and shout and tumble. Though this be worse than my father kingdoms to enjoy it once the free go on. We dance and sing about Mayfair in the cheapside, is to pray in the sand, each covering his neighbors up, and times we make merge the paddlers of little mud. It has not it's like it's delightfulness. In the world, we do fairly the oral in a murder, sir, saving your worship presence. Oh, free, say no more, the glorious, if that I could clothe this meat in lament like the dwine, and then strip my feet in the level in the mud once, and just once, with none of the books to me at the forbidded missimus, I could forego the crown. And if that I could clothe me once, then Switzers and those are credit just once. Oh, wouldn't like it? Then so shall it be. Doff be the legs and done these splendorous lad. It is a blip. Darkness, but will be no less keen for that. We'll have it wild maced and change against before any comes memorist. A few minutes later, the little prince waves were gallant with tongues threatening all and ending. The little prince of the purple dome was tricked out in the goldest plumbest of loyalty. The two went and stood side by side before the great mirrors and the Lord's miracle. There did not seem to have been any changing images. They stared at each other, then at the rest, then at each other again. At last, the puzzled princess said, "What does the make of this?" Good, your worships, requires me no answers. It's not me that's one of my degrees curious to utter the thing. Then when I heard it, there hadn't the same hairs, the same eyes, the same voiced manners, and the same form of stature, and the same face and countenance, but I bears the pharaoh is half naked. There is none could say which was you, and then which is the prince of the world. And now that I am clothed as those two were clothed, it seems that I should be able to more nearly it. Feel as though it didn't when the brute soldiers the heart here, and it's not this is bruising upon your hand. Yeah, but it's a slight thing, but your worship the nurse and the poor man at arms. It was shameful thing that cruel. I cried, a little prince and stamping his bare foot. If the king's heard and not a step till I come again, at his command. In a moment he had snatched up and then threw away the articulation's importance, lay upon a table, and was out at door and flying through the polished ground in his banner rags with a hot face and glowing eyes. As soon as he reached the great gate, he seized the bars and tried to shake them sharply open over the gates. The soldier that had must reach his terms of age promptly, as the prince burst through the portals the house, smothered with lower rest. The soldiers patched him a sounding box on the ear, then sent him whirling to the roadway, said, "Take that, the beggar's forms, for what those the ghost missed promised the highness." The crowd roared with laughter. The prince picked himself out of the mud and then made fiercely at the sentries shooting. "I'm the Prince of Wales, my person is scared." And then those are hands for leaning the hand upon me. The soldier brought his halberd and to prison arms and said mockingly, "I salute your gracious highness, then angrily to be oft, and the crazy lavish." Here the jeering crowd crowded around the poor little prince, and hustled this father the loudest, hooting hymns and shouting, "Wait for his Royal Highness! Wait for the Prince of Wales!" Interesting story. Um, I'm familiar with this story because I watched the movies, The Prince and Pauper. It's quite interesting uh, to read this story. Mm, and then Tom Canty, was Pauper, met the Prince um, Edward, Edward, and Tudor, the Kingdom of Wales, and then uh, they recognized they were resembled each other. So and then the Prince Edward said to Tom, and let's change it. And then so and the Prince Edward became the pauper, and then Tom, the pauper, became the prince. And the prince went to the um, pauper court. The storyline is going and interesting.